Hey everybody, Who's Your Jedi here with another review for you. This time talking the Doctor Who episode Hellbent, and this is it, our season finale. And I gotta say, I predicted that somehow the show would give Clara a happy ending, and I was right. I said the show did not have the guts to sort of pull an ad trick with her, and I was right. Um, so let's just kind of get right into things. All in all, I thought this was a reasonably strong episode. I really like how, for a big chunk of the early part of the episode, the Doctor just does not say a word and is just able to, just through sheer force of personality, of the sheer "I'm the Doctor," gets, just blows off a military gunship, blows off all these soldiers, just this general guy, blows off the Time Lord Council until eventually Rassilon himself has to come down there and deal with the Doctor. And, once again, Rassilon just does not learn that he can't beat the Doctor. Especially given the number of times this has happened. But Rassilon did end up being exiled, so I'm sure he'll be back to cause the Doctor trouble in the future. It's just, at this point, Rassilon was supposed to be the greatest of the Time Lords. And here, the Doctor just kind of made him look like a complete chump. So I think that kind of defanged Rassilon in a lot of ways. So if they want to use him again as a character, they're going to have to come up with something pretty spectacular, because here, like, the general and all those people basically said, you know what, there's really the Doctor that won the Time War. I mean, he's even said the man who won the Time War. And, screw you, Rassilon. So yeah, I mean, it was for a great moment, but it kind of feels like they've, as I said, I guess you could say, nerfed somebody who was an important character and felt like, oh, it's Rassilon. Okay, things are pretty serious. So after that, they're going to really have to work hard if they want to try and do that again with the character. So the whole thing with what that lady from the Sisterhood of Karn going on about, like, you've broken every single rule that you've ever believed in. It all sounds very dramatic, but it doesn't really quite feel like that to me. I mean, yeah, the Doctor sort of messed around with time and space in a way that was potentially dangerous. And yeah, the Doctor shot, and I guess, in a way, caused the General's death. But the Doctor has caused the death of a lot of people. Now, the whole shooting somebody with a gun, well, that's not usually his style, but yeah, he has arranged for the death of many people, and this is outside of the War Doctor. I mean, remember that collector guy that the Matt Smith Doctor just sort of left to die on that spaceship? So yeah, this is not something new for the Doctor. He's not, he's not Batman. Okay, the Doctor will destroy people if they make it necessary. He won't like it, but he will do it, because sometimes that's the only way of dealing with situations. Now, he'll try everything possible beforehand to kind of make sure it doesn't have to come to that, but if push comes to shove, yes, the Doctor will see to it that other people's lives end. This kind of felt more like them really saying, like, yes, we're going to show on screen that Time Lords can change gender, just in case you haven't bought into that already, what with Missy and the Master. And, here we can see that they can also change racial appearances. I mean, race, if you look at it in terms of a genetics, is basically non-existent. I think I read somewhere that the part of our DNA that defines what we tend to consider as racial characteristics compromises something like 0.20% of our DNA. And already there's less than a 2% genetic difference between a human and a chimp. So, yeah. It kind of felt more like that was the show making some sort of a statement about their personal ethics rather than actually doing something that seemed in service to the story. I know there was quite a lot of talk about me earlier, a couple of years ago, when they were figuring out who was going to be the 12th Doctor, about Idris Elba being cast as the Doctor. And a lot of people said, oh, that would be really cool. And I have to agree. Elba is a phenomenal, phenomenal actor. And yeah, he would be a great Doctor. He if you have to kind of give him one of the more serious Doctors. But yeah, I mean, as a potential actor to bring in be the Doctor, he was a great choice. Of course, then they went with Peter Capaldi, and even Idris Elba said, like, look, this is all well and great, but I'm not really interested in being the Doctor right now. But yeah, that I don't know. Like I said, I kind of just sort of felt like the show was making a mission statement, saying, like, look, here you've seen it. We might do a female Doctor at some point. We might do a Doctor who is not Caucasian at some point in the future. So don't try and hide behind canon on that one. That's bunk. And okay, as I said, I understand it, but it's sort of. All right, I'm just going to let it there. I think I'm going to just kind of get into a situation where I'm just repeating myself. Okay. So let's see. What are some things that I did like about this episode? And in general, I thought it was a pretty strong episode. Well, this episode does answer one of the kind of the big questions that Doctor Who fans have had for a long time. Is everybody on Gallifrey a Time Lord? Does everybody on Gallifrey get to run around in time and space in a TARDIS? Well, we get to see these people who live out in the desert, and the Rassilon, sort of blows them off like, yeah, they're nobody. Now, granted, these could be the Gallifreyan version of the Amish for all we know, but here it just seems to say that no, not everybody on Gallifrey gets to go to the Academy, gets to become a Time Lord, gets to run around in time and space in a TARDIS. So, okay, that kind of makes sense. It's always sort of been heavily implied by Doctor Who that the people who do that are sort of the 1%ers, the elite of this society. And that kind of brings up some interesting ramifications, but I don't really feel like getting into that right now. Let's see, what else? I definitely did like how that whole thing where they talk about the hybrid situation. They say, like, well, like, it could be. I guess we're going to have to call her me. I don't want to call her me. I'm just going to keep calling her a Shilder, because that's not stupid. And I love how they never expressly say that the Doctor Who TV movie is either right or wrong. But again, they seem to really heavily imply that the whole thing about the Doctor being half human might be true. Again, they've never contradicted what was said in the TV movie. But the whole idea of the hybrid is the Doctor and Clara. I'm sorry, that's stupid. That is stupid. And that's all I'm going to say about that. That is stupid. Because standing in the ruins of Gallifrey, well, pretty safe to say that except for a guest appearance in the future, we're probably not going to see Clara again. The idea that it was a Shilder who was somehow going to end up destroying Gallifrey, like, why the hell would she care about Gallifrey? I mean, the only Time Lord she's ever met, well, okay, that we know of, is the Doctor. She has no reason to have some sort of vendetta against the Time Lords, really. She has some reason to be pissed off at the Doctor, but not his entire species. So the only candidate who really makes any sense as the hybrid is the Doctor, and the idea that he could stand in the ruins of Time Lord society. Well, remember, the Valyard is probably still a possibility. Okay? So, I kind of have to wonder. Okay, now I know I may be a little overly obsessed with the Valyard, just because, well, one, the whole story with the Valyard, the Trial of a Time Lord season, is the one that, for me, really redeemed the Sixth Doctor in my eyes. Simply because it was honestly a really good story, and Colin Baker got handed a lot of stinker scripts and did the best that he could with them. But yeah, that was some good stuff. And the idea of the potential Doctor potentially going evil in the future, and that's something that they've danced around with many times before. The Time Lord victorious and all of that. And I hope, that's one of my great hopes with New Who, is that they at some point return to the idea of the Valyard because it's such an amazing idea. The Doctor having to fight his own potentially evil self from a potential future. I mean, that's great stuff. Let's see. What else? Well, I do have to say that well, I don't. Well, I think the whole idea of the Doctor and Clara being the hybrid is dumb. Just seeing them running around together, causing making the Time Lords look like chump. I mean, that was great stuff. That whole thing with like where Clara performs a distraction, and the Doctor's like, "Oh, he's off doing what he does, stealing a TARDIS and running away." I have to admit, I said like, "Yep, that's exactly right." It reminds me of that Peter Davidson bit where where Tegan says to him, "So what? Now you're going to go running away from your own people in a rickety old TARDIS?" And the Fifth Doctor says, "Why not? After all, that's how all this got started." So yeah, I mean that was great stuff. And then the whole thing down in the Matrix. Well, again, the Matrix, something from very classic Doctor Who, and seeing weeping angels and Daleks and Cybermen down there, that was all pretty cool. The Dalek begging to be exterminated, and those wraiths with the creepy faces. Again, that's really cool. And reminiscent of something we saw in what was it, the 30th anniversary special back in no, the 20th anniversary special back in the 80s, when they had Peter Davidson, and there were some Time Lords who basically kind of got turned into statues or well, boss reliefs, I think is a proper term, but whatever. Um, while still alive, by Rassilon of all people. Yeah, so the Doctor got a pretty nice little lesson into why you don't ever ask for immortality. But seriously, go watch that. The Five Doctors. That's a great, great story. So let's see what else. We do get to see the inside of this other TARDIS, and of course, it looks exactly like the first Doctor's TARDIS, or at least one of the incarnations of the first Doctor's TARDIS. And it does end exactly like I say. I said that somehow or other they were going to find a way to give Clara a happy ending, and this is really kind of a payoff of the whole thing of Clara acting like she's the Doctor. So now she's got she's got a TARDIS with a broken chameleon circuit and a cute young female companion. I mean, what's more the Doctor than that? The idea of it being stuck in the shape of a sort of a 50s diner is a little, yeah, okay, that seems a little impractical because, boy, good luck getting that to materialize inside of any place that isn't like a warehouse or an aircraft hangar. That's one of the nice things about the TARDIS being shaped like a police box. It can easily materialize inside of buildings. But again, we're overthinking all of this. Other good stuff, the Cloisters got another appearance, and they're continue to play around with the Doctor's guitar skills, and that conversation the Doctor has with Clara at the beginning, and as you see how it plans out. Now, what I really like about all of that is the irony. And I've talked before about how they might do something like what happened with Donna to Clara, have her forget him. Now here they do this really nice reversal, and it's the Doctor who gets the mind wipe. Now, to some degree, it's like, okay, now at the end he knows what Clara looks like. He knows that she's alive. A lot of the details are gone, but well, you know what I mean. And I have to say, I really did like that. That was a nice bit of irony. And Peter Capaldi and Jenna Coleman really, really just knocked it out of the park on this one. Nothing really huge to say about Maisie Williams. I mean, not that she's doing anything bad. It just sort of feels like basically it's like, okay, we need a scene with a shielder. Okay, we're going to bring Maisie Williams in here to basically be sarcastic towards the Doctor, and that's all she does really as a character, is sit there and sort of be snarky and sarcastic, and of course face the Raven, she got to be scared shitless of the Doctor, which was kind of cool. But it just doesn't really feel like they gave her a lot of room to stretch from a character. They just basically like, okay, here's her as a little girl, and here's her after she's been alive for centuries and centuries, and the centuries and centuries version of her pretty much the same thing. She's very one note as after she's lived for a long time. That's the thing that really kind of gets to me. And I don't know. Well, whatever. Let's see. Anything else? The idea that a lot of the stuff that was going on might have in fact been a plan by Missy. That was kind of cool. A lot of people were also talking about how one of the things that she talked about years ago was like, I did this, this, and this when I was a little girl on Gallifrey. One of those things is a lie. And it's sort of meant to imply that the whole thing is now that Master might actually have been born female, which seems a bit odd. Didn't we see the Master as a kid in a flashback, and where he was clearly male? I think that was like War Drums or something. Now, it has been established that Time Lord children can regenerate, so I suppose he might have been in some sort of accident as a child and regenerated into a male at some point when he was very, very young. I mean, that's possibility was certainly on the table, but I don't know. That's my friend sending me a text. I'll get back to him in a bit. Let's see. Anything else? Anything else? No, no. I have to say, I mean, this is a good way to send Clara out on. They leave the door open for the possibility of her maybe popping back for a guest appearance. I'm sure Doctor Who, the showrunners, would be thrilled if they could find some way to get Maisie Williams back on here. Again, the door is open for her, and she could always just say like, "Oh, Clara is off doing her own thing for a little while. So I'm gonna go pick her up after this." So, yeah, I mean, lots of possibilities there. But I definitely like that ending scene. The Doctor kind of like straps on his gear, gets himself a new sonic screwdriver. Looks a little bit like the one River Song used. And then he gets that sort of final message from Clara, which I found hilarious because Clara's job at the school is being an English teacher, and yet she made very basic mistakes with by not with punctuation. That sign should have said "run, comma, you silly boy" or whatever that was, and be a doctor. Oh, you silly boy, comma, and be a doctor. Period. Okay, that thing needed 2 commas and a period. Clara, you're a high school English teacher. That's elementary school stuff. You should not be making mistakes like that. So yeah, and that's not a British English thing either, because yeah, like teaching English is my job in real life. So yeah, it's my job to know these things. Yeah, that I thought was kind of annoying. Although using commas properly in those situations has been going downhill in the English-speaking world for a number of years now, and it's one of those things that drives me crazy. Because before I got into this sort of profession, I really wasn't that great about grammar, but again, it was my job to know these things. But like knowing to use commas in that situation is one of the things from elementary school grammar that I did pick up. And even back when I was in high school, seeing people do that would annoy the heck out of me. And now that it's actually my job, I was just... Okay, well, I should probably get back to my friend's message. So I'm going to call it here, guys. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter at Who's Your Jedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.